Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about the recent attack coming from North Gaza to Jerusalem with two of the Palestinian resistance longer missiles being launched at Jerusalem and then explosions heard in Jerusalem. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the escalation coming from the Yemeni Ansarullah against Israel, with them targeting the Nevatim base and them taking down an MQ-9 again for the 13th time now near Yemen. And the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about is a very important development when it comes to the strategic partnership between Iran and China. I'm going to start off with this here. The Palestinian resistance, they targeted the I'm going to start off with this here. The Palestinian resistance, they targeted Jerusalem with two long-range missiles compared to what they have in Gaza to Jerusalem. Where did they launch them from? And explosions heard in Jerusalem. Israel saying we took these missiles down, but the people in Jerusalem say they heard explosions without too much elaboration. Where were these missiles launched from? This is a key element here. These missiles were launched from Beit Hanun. Beit Hanun is this area right here. This is one of the most northern parts in Gaza, the most northern town in Gaza that has been targeted since the beginning of the genocide. This place is in rubbles. Israel has been conducting a general's plan all across the northern Gaza Strip. Jabalia, we've been talking about Jabalia, it's in ruins now. Beit Hanun is the same from a longer time ago. How is the Palestinian resistance able to launch not short-range missiles to some of the smaller settlements next to the Gaza Strip in what Israel calls U'atif Gaza, or the areas surrounding Gaza, but to Jerusalem? This shocked Israel. They're trying to say that Hamas, they're trying to get rid of their stock and supply before we reach them. This is the Israeli argument, saying, yeah, they know we're going to come for them, so they're trying to get rid of the arms. Well, you've been there for a year. What do you mean? You're next to them already. Waiting for what exactly? Israel is always trying to undermine how significant this is. And this is significant because of many factors, by the way. The first one is the fact that the Palestinian resistance is still capable of launching longer range missiles on Israel. That's number one. Benjamin Netanyahu, in the beginning of the war, he always used to say, we're here to eliminate Hamas. He's no longer saying that now, but he used to say, we want to eliminate Hamas. And we want to destroy their military capabilities, destroy them as an organization, as a military wing, as a political wing. They're still fighting them in Gaza. They're still humiliating them in Gaza. Today, many attacks from the Palestinian resistance on several terrorist forces inside of the Gaza Strip. And the main thing was the launching of these two missiles on Jerusalem. And by the way, the Palestinian resistance doesn't target Jerusalem as something normal. They usually do that only in certain cases. They try and not target Jerusalem that much. But targeting Jerusalem is sending Israel a strong message that we are still able to reach the heart of occupied Palestine, the area that we need to liberate from you. They could have launched these missiles on Tel Aviv, for example, or what is called the Kiryat, or the defense ministry in Israel. But no, they decided Jerusalem to send Israel a message. And although Israel is trying to downplay it, this is sending very strong messages, not only to the political and the military leadership in Israel, but also the Israeli population. The Israeli population, almost half of the reservists are refusing to follow orders. Tens of thousands killed and wounded. The people are seeing a government sending them to this war, to this genocide for over 15 months now. And the Palestinian resistance, the side that Israel is saying we want to destroy, is still able to launch missiles to the most sensitive parts inside of Israel. What are we exactly doing? This is a massive blow for Benjamin Netanyahu. And remember very well, and I always repeat this, Israel destroys Gaza and targets the population to cover up these failures, to try and portray an image of victory that they will not be obtaining. So again, the Palestinian resistance is proving that they still have the capacity, they still have the manpower, they still have the ground forces, and they still have the strategic capacity to target Israel very deep into Palestinian occupied territories. This is the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about, well, Yemen is not stopping. Yemen had multiple declarations. Firstly, they targeted the Nevatim IDF terror base in the southern part of Israel, the one that Iran targeted more than once too. And they also took down an MQ-9. That's for the 13th time. That's the 13th one that they take down. Imagine how much losses the genocide cartel is suffering from when it comes to Yemen. But it didn't just stop with these attacks. There were statements coming out from the leadership of Ansarullah today in which they said, we have the capacity to escalate even further. In Israel, they are now warning Yemen. They're threatening, they're saying, we want to target their leaders. We want to take down the Yemeni leadership. But they're admitting that they're struggling when it comes to intelligence. They're finding it difficult to find information and intel about the whereabouts of the leaders of the Ansarullah movement and where they place their strategic weapons. Even though in Israel, they now have a dedicated team in their intelligence services for Yemen. That's it. Despite that, they're struggling. That's why they're targeting the Sana'a airport, Al Hudaydah, and places they call strategic, right? Without anything significant. Because think about it and always ask this question. Are the Israeli attacks, no matter how they try and portray them, are they stopping the attacks against them? They're not. And that's what Yemen is doing, continuing to attack. But now, several figures from the Yemeni Ansarullah movement said, if they want to target our leaders, we have the capacity to target their leaders. We have enough courage and we have the means to target their leaders. And we have the means to escalate even further. Now, that's something that's frustrating Israel a lot. Because the debate recently in Israel is, do we target Yemen now more because they're targeting us so much? Or do we go for Iran? I spoke about the debate that happened in the Israeli echelon, political and military echelon, when it comes to the Mossad and the IDF primarily. The head of the Mossad is recommending that they target Iran, whereas the Israeli terror army is saying, no, we need to target Yemen because they don't have sufficient defense when it comes to Iran. And Iran also has defense systems that are very sophisticated. And they targeted Israel heavily with True Promise 1 and 2, specifically 2. So with Yemen, if they want to escalate, and Netanyahu is leaning to escalate more against Yemen now, they're doing nothing, basically. Okay, targeting a couple of places, all right. They targeted a couple of power stations. They started working again in all of the provinces in Yemen. They targeted the airport, again recovering, and they're undergoing repairs. What else are you going to do in Yemen? You clearly cannot stop them. And again, why is Yemen doing it from the get-go? To impose a blockade and target and put pressure on a genocidal entity, a war criminal entity that's committing genocide, like the ICJ said, with arrest warrants on against its prime minister. This is why. imposing a perfectly legal blockade against a war criminal terrorist entity. It's very simple. But despite that, the United States decided to go and help Israel with their attacks in Yemen, when it comes to the US and the UK with the genocide coalition. But again, that's not effective. Yemen is continuing. And these countries, instead of applying pressure on this genocide entity to stop their barbarism in Gaza, they go against Yemen, which is conducting a perfectly legal action against a genocidal entity. It's that simple, really. So apply the pressure on the country committing a genocide. Yemen is not stopping. Yemen is not stopping, but it's not just about Yemen. It's also about Iran. And in Iran, there are very significant developments. We haven't seen a True Promise 3 yet, but Iran before, when they said they will do something, they did it. And clearly, Iran is preparing a lot in the background. They have a pending strategic partnership or defense pact with Russia. And before the delay in their attack against Israel and retaliation against the Israeli terrorist aggression in Iran, well, we saw the Ilyushins and their coordination with Russia and with Belarus before they conducted an attack, indicating that they need to be well prepared to protect themselves very well before they attack Israel, because they know Israel has capabilities that can hurt Iran potentially. So they need to be very well prepared. But it's not just with Russia, it's also with none other than China. So we had this report here in Iran about a new meeting coming between Iran and China regarding more strategic ties. Iran, China share views on Middle East developments. But it's not just that. The most significant things in this meeting that they agreed upon is the coordination between the two countries on political, diplomatic, parliamentary, defense, security, law enforcement, judicial, economic, and trade fields. So Iran, although their main partnership when it comes to the military side or the defense side is with Russia, however, they declared before that their biggest partner globally is China, because they're the biggest oil exporter to China. So it's not only an Iranian benefit, it's a Chinese benefit. China views Iran or regards Iran in a very high manner. They're very important and strategic for them, especially with the hostility coming from the US and NATO against China, but primarily the US administration. The NATO, again, it's a proxy organization for the United States at the end of the day. They're increasing the ties with China, including on the military level, something that China usually tries not to make very blatant. Usually they'll allow North Korea, for example, to have defense pact with Russia, North Korean ties and arms shipments to other countries too. Even Egypt gets North Korean weapons, for example. But this is a declaration coming from China, and it's a political position too about the views of the two countries when it comes to the situation in West Asia. And that's something very significant. Now, there are a couple of questions that arise with this report here. Is Iran relying on something from China as well before any upcoming potential escalation with Israel that the US will be backing? Because from an Iranian perspective, they know, like, this country, they're totally backed by the United States. We, as in Iran, we need to prepare ourselves very, very well, but we also need strong backers. Who are the strong backers willing to cooperate with us? Primarily Russia and China. With Russia, it's already there. Do we need something extra from China? And China, although they're very quiet, they're advancing rapidly on every single level: development, economy, military, science, research, everything. China is a massive country and the upcoming #1 superpower in the world. So that's very likely. That's very likely that Iran could be relying on something to do with China. And the fact that China is being more, blatant about it, more open about it, says a lot about their position, or about them sending a message to Because don't forget, when the genocide coalition was formed against Yemen, and when the escalation started and the US started to send aircraft carriers to the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, China sent 6 warships to the region. But they sent them as a message to the countries surrounding that we're willing to take the role of the protector. And although some Israeli-linked ships at the time required assistance and called some of these Chinese ships to help them from the attacks coming from Yemen, they didn't even respond to them. So their role wasn't there to, of course, not to protect Israel, also not to participate against them, but send a message. And now with these ties with Iran, they're sending even more messages. And of course, it's not just about Iran, it's about Russia too. With Russia, there's a pending agreement between Iran and Russia that many said could be a defense pact. And just over a month ago, Iran declared that despite Trump's election, they don't care. They're continuing to keep the ties with Iran and Russia, and also expand them. There was a report in Iran about Ali Akbar Wilayati, one of the advisors to the supreme leader of Iran, when he met with the Chinese envoy to Tehran, again reiterating that we don't care who comes and who is the new president in the United States. We're increasing the ties because we're looking to build a multipolar world. In many of their statements when it comes to the coordination and the situation in West Asia and their ties with Russia and China, they always state the fact that they are looking to build a multipolar world. So there's something very big happening. And the fact that China now is involved in the picture could also indicate that Iran is probably relying on some assistance from China when it comes to any upcoming escalation that they might have against the genocide entity backed by the United States. And these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about in this video. As usual, I hope I added some beneficial information for you, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.